Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
All right, we just got an update there from authorities in Nashville. We heard from Nashville Police Chief John Drake giving us an update on the fatal school shooting that happened this morning in Nashville at Covenant School. It's a private Christian school there, an elementary school. We're going to bring back News Nation Law and Justice contributor Jennifer Coffindoffer. Jennifer, you just listened to that press conference as well, and I want to just talk about a few things that stuck out to me. So we found out that this shooter is a transgender woman, Audrey Elizabeth Hale, 28 years old, from the area, apparently lived with her parents, and police have been in contact with her father and also say that they found a manifesto and elaborate maps outlining and detailing what was going to happen today.
Well, this isn't unusual. A lot of times shooters will actually plan out these assaults very well. And in fact, I find it interesting that she chose not to go to another school specifically because there was too much security. And those are the sort of hardening type of measures that need to be taken by these schools so that it will thwart attacks of them.
Well, and something that also stood out to me, the chief there said, because we talked about how this shooter had apparently gained access through a side door, but the chief just telling us there that this shooter had apparently shot through the door in order to gain access to the first floor of that school.
Yes, I thought that was very interesting. I would want to know whether did they just walk up and shoot? Did they try the handle? Did they shoot at the handle? I am curious as to whether that was indeed locked, which that would infer, and they needed to shoot to gain entry.
And last question for you, Jennifer. We were hearing there from authorities that it will take at least 2 days to process this scene because it does extend from the first floor up to the second floor where the shooter was in fact fatally shot. Talk to us about what that processing looks like.
Well, it's very involved. It's a step-by-step process of following the evidence, which is going to be in large part the casings as a result of the bullets that were fired, and walking through really figuring out exactly the details of how she made her way through this building. In addition, Nicole, of course, they are going to be looking thoroughly through that manifesto. They're going to be going through all of her social media, through her emails, through her text messaging. There is a lot to this person and this plan, and they are going to get to the bottom of it, but it's going to take some time.
Absolutely. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindoffer, we appreciate you coming back to talk about that.
Are you ready?
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Well, I hope everyone has had a great week. It's been at least that and then some since I did a video here. I've been kind of busy for a few days, and when you get exhausted, you don't feel like talking about bad news there when it comes out, you know what I'm saying? So, actually, weather's improving here. We had, with Base, we're saying, oh, we were going to have a blizzard. Well, yeah, we did have a blizzard. And you know what? The morning after, it all melted. Okay? So the ground is pretty well gone of snow. Today it's beautiful out, like 45 degrees out. I know some of you would say, that's cold. Well, for us Mainers, that ain't cold. That's like summer. You go around not even wearing a coat. our blood's thicker up here from having to live in the cold more, you know, so that's why we can tolerate temperatures like that. But yeah, 45 degrees, sunny out, everything. Unfortunately, the rest of the week is going to be clouds here. And we always have to pay more than what we get in good weather. Kind of like life, isn't it? Paying more than what things are worth, you know, in stores. So that's how it works here too, you know. But yeah, it's nice to see that the spring is here finally, and the weather patterns are shifting to warmer days, and we're getting more daylight outside, which is good because I notice a lot more people outside walking, you know, when riding their bikes and stuff. And it's nice that people are happy there when they can take their pets outside and walk with them, you know. There's this one lady, I don't know if the dog, if she's walking the dog or if the dog's walking her, but she takes the dog out and she follows the dog through the friggin' brush and everything, the trees and I'm thinking, well, that's, where the hell are you going with that dog? You know, Jesus, I mean, is the dog just walking you or are you walking it? Christ, the dog's taking her through all the damn woods and everything around here. Christ, you know, I don't know. But, you know, certainly, you know, I wouldn't be doing that with my pet. You know, Christ, you don't know what the hell you're going to run into out there in them damn woods here. I mean, we got deer that run around here. We got raccoons, skunks, a lot of skunks, squirrels, and stray pets, or stray animals like cats and dogs, you know. We've even seen a moose a few times around here because they're on the other side. Well, when you go up the next road and you go over to the other side of that road, there's like a tiny swamp there. It's, you know, not very big. It's like maybe the size of like a Olympic sized swimming pool or something, maybe big, a little bigger than that, but it's a swamp, and moose like swamps. Okay, they like walking through that. I don't know why, but they just have a habit of hanging around there. But yeah, I mean, I've seen that. So we got, just in this little town of Veazey here, it's really small, we got all these friggin' creatures that are in our lives here. You know, wild turkeys, I don't want to forget that. We got wild turkeys around here. So I mean, it's everything. You might as well just live in a zoo, because that's what it is like, you know, living up here. You know, instead of having the animals caged up, they're right in your face every time you do things. So, and of course, Smokey here, whenever she sees something, anything outside, she's like, you know, she wants to jump through the friggin' glass and go after it, you know. So I mean, it's always a thing. It's always a thing going on around here. So, all that aside, this has been a pretty bad day here for shootings, huh? And we had two of them, almost back to back. We had one that happened, I think it was just before noon, and then like 2 or 3 hours later, then another one happened in Tennessee. The first one, excuse me, our first one happened out in Nashville, okay, which is Tennessee. All right, and the data's still coming in about that. Let me see if I can click on that here. Yeah, it's, you know, what do they say? I got 130 mass killings already this year, and we're in March. We're just in March, and we already got 130 mass killings. That's really quite a record there to be proud of. Okay, this is from the Daily Beast here. Nashville school shooting suspect identified. The suspect, accused of storming a private Christian school in Nashville on Monday morning, killing 3 kids and 3 adults, has been identified as a quiet 28-year-old former art student who once attended the church-based school. The Nashville Metro Police Department identified the suspect as Audrey Hale, who was shot dead by cops just 14 minutes after the Covenant School first called police to report an active shooter. The victims were identified as students Evelyn Dacus, Haley Scruggs, and William Kinney, all aged 9, as well as head of school Catherine Contz, 60, Cynthia Peak, 61, and Mike Hill, 61. While police described Hale as a 28-year-old white woman, social media profiles under Hale's name list him, he, him pronouns. A LinkedIn profile says Hale started a freelance illustration and graphic design business last year after attending and working for Nossi College of Art in Madison, Tennessee. At Nossi, Hale won an award for Most Improved in 2015, according to the school site. Hours after the shooting, police searched a home just 3 miles away from the school. A neighbor, Sandy Durham, who is also a family friend of the Hales, said the ATF told her they were there, quote, to see what was going on next door at the Hale house, unquote. Quote, I do know Audrey. I've known her since she was a baby, and I had just gotten out of the shower when all of this started happening. I didn't really know anything more than that. Something was going on next door. It's just tragic for everybody. The sweet children that were hurt, killed, the adults, all of it, unquote, she told the Daily Beast. Asked if there were any warning signs about Hale, Durham responded, quote, never. She was very sweet. I don't know what happened. It's very scary, unquote. Let's see. Sean Brashears, who grew up next door to the Hale and whose family still lives there, said that Hales were, quote, our neighbors for basically ever on that street, as long as I can really remember growing up as a kid, unquote. Hale was a normal, nice person, maybe a little quiet, he said. Quote, if I had to imagine, Audrey's parents are probably just as shocked as everybody else in the neighborhood. It just doesn't seem real, unquote, he said. Quote, there's nothing that would have led me to believe that she was capable of such a thing, or that she or anybody in that family would have access to, much less ever used, a gun. They just don't seem like the family that has guns all around. They're not talking about going to a gun range, or they're not going hunting, unquote. He said that growing up, his family had a basketball hoop in their driveway, and Hale would come over and shoot hoops. Another neighbor told the Daily Beast they heard a quote-unquote huge boom as police entered the family's home. Quote, my son and I were having lunch around 1 o'clock and we heard a huge boom that shook our house and had no idea what it was, unquote, said Abigail Rooms, who said she lives several doors down. Quote, and when we peeked out the door, there were undercover police cars and ambulances and fire trucks blocking the street. And then we noticed all of our neighbors start to creep out at the same time, unquote. Hale entered Covenant at school of about 200 preschool to 6th grade students, though through a side entrance just after 10 a.m. Monday. Police said she fired multiple shots as she made her way from the first floor to the second before a team of 5 Nashville cops confronted her on the second floor. She was armed with at least 2 assault-style rifles and a handgun, police said. Well, the first thing right off the thing that, that comes off in the story, is like, you don't really hear much about many stories where women are the ones doing the shooting. You know what I'm saying? I understand in the story here they said that how'd they put it? They alluded to them being to her being transgender, I guess. He didn't say much about it. Yeah, or right here on the second paragraph says, described Hale as a 28-year-old white woman. Social media profiles under Hale's name list he, him pronouns. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but I'm hoping that the Republicans aren't going to try and use that as some to say, see, the transgender people are violent and they'll kill you, when statistics show that over 85% or even higher than that are the shooters are just men, probably mostly white males, I don't know, but it's mostly men, and it's unusual that you would see something like this. Not very often. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm sure women have drew guns on people before, but this is, I think, at least I can't remember the last time I read a story where a woman shot up a place in a mass killing, and using the kind of weapons that Hale had here. I don't know if we'll ever know why that happened, but I don't think it's going to matter if we know why, because these shootings happen all the time. Like I said, 130 mass killings. That may be an old number now. There could have been another one, but I'm saying, as far as I know, at least 130 mass killings already this year, and we're only in March. Okay, and that's not something to be proud of. And that's something the NRA or the Republicans should be proud of either, because this blows a hole in their whole theory about a well-armed country being a safer country. It's not. We're living proof of that. So any country in the world that's watching this should get it out of their heads, if they're thinking that it doesn't work. It can't work. Here we are. We're losing children and innocent people every day in this country because, everybody has guns. Everybody's walking around. It's like the old West. There is no law and order around here. Okay? And, your life expectancy is probably affected not by virus or disease, but by the chances of you getting shot and killed. And we should, and the thing of it is it's totally preventable, and we can totally change this if we had the balls of temerity to do so. But a lot of us do. Okay, the majority of Americans do want to see some changes made to stop or at least reduce the frequency of these mass killings. Okay, the fact is that the minority that's out there saying no, they got all the money, they got all the clout, and they're able to stop things or change things around in their individual states, okay, which makes the minority party look more, powerful, because they're able to stop the majority from getting its way, and they're able to do things in their own states and, make things happen that have bad results happen in their states, okay, and they won't admit that they made the mistake, of arming their society. They won't ever admit they were wrong. In fact, they'll just deny it up and down, and they'll just say, it's just liberal bullshit, and we're not gonna subscribe to it. You know what I'm saying? They'll just do that, and that narrative has been passed down for decades. After every school shooting or every mass shooting, mall shooting, whatever, all these mass killings, that's always been the excuse. Okay. But we all know, the rest of us that understand things a lot better than Republicans do, understand that the problem lies there. At least the root of it does. And you can't just hand out guns to people that you don't even know if they have a background, a mental health problem, or a criminal background. You can't just do that. You can't just give these things away. Nobody's going to know, I don't think. Well, maybe they'll find out how Hale got that gun, those rifles and stuff like that, okay? But I don't think it's going to surprise anybody at how she got it, okay? It's not gonna surprise anybody that certain situations came up that Hale couldn't handle, being picked on, perhaps. I don't know. If that's the case, I'm surprised a lot more of these shootings aren't done by transgender people, because they get a lot of ribbing from people in our society, and we have this problem where even as kids, something that's different that we don't see every day gets pulled out from the crowd and set on a pedestal so everybody can laugh and jeer at it. You know what I'm saying? They just these people are really walking bullseyes for all kinds of hate and everything. So I'm surprised you don't see much more than we do about, transgender people and the homosexual community, getting violent, because they've certainly been treated violent, in many cases in the past, being shot, burned, run over. You know what I'm saying? They get no sympathy from a lot of people. So I'm not sure. I'm just guessing that maybe that could be the reason. I don't know. There's always a reason, I think, for these things to happen, even if they can't find it. Sometimes the reason is something that we can't believe it's a reason, because we see ourselves in the situation as being able to handle something like that. But not everybody has the same degree of of dealing with things as others, and it gets to them quick. But like I said, I don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever know. To be honest, I really don't know if we'll ever know what caused this. So there was, when all the media down there covering things, a survivor from the Highland Park mass shooting that happened was there, and when Fox News was covering the shooting in Nashville, she jumped in on the microphone, and she got right in everybody's face and demanded gun reform. Okay, so here's an article here that'll explain it better from Insider. A Highland Park mass shooting survivor jumped on the mic as Fox News covered a deadly Nashville school shooting and demanded gun reform. How is this still happening? A Highland Park shooting survivor interrupted Fox News' TV coverage of a deadly Nashville school shooting, jumping on the mic to demand lawmakers to pass gun control. Fox News and local news outlets were reporting on the scene when a woman walked up to the mic and gave an impassioned plea for gun control. The woman, who USA Today identified as an activist named Ashby Beasley, said she was a survivor of the Highland Park, Illinois shooting on July 4th of 2022 that left 7 people dead. Quote, "Aren't you guys tired of covering this?" Unquote. Beasley said, quote, "Aren't you guys tired of being here and having to cover all these mass shootings?" Unquote. Beasley said was visiting the Nashville area on a family vacation with her son to visit her sister-in-law when she heard about the latest deadly shooting, which left 3 children and 3 adults at a Christian school dead. Quote, "I have been lobbying in D.C. since we survived a mass shooting in July," unquote, Beasley said in front of a group of reporters on the scene, which was broadcast on Fox News. Quote, "I have met with over 130 lawmakers. How is this still happening? How are our children still dying, and why are we still failing them?" Unquote. She continues, quote, "These mass shootings will continue to happen until our lawmakers step up and pass gun legislation," unquote. Fox News abruptly cut away from her, with a reporter responding to the woman's speech saying she, quote, "said it quite succinctly, aren't you tired of this? Yes, we are tired of this," unquote. Though Fox News' broadcast cut Beasley off, the recount posted video showing more of her remarks. Quote, "We all have to call our lawmakers, and we all have to make our lawmakers change now," unquote, Beasley continued in the video shared by the recount on Twitter. Quote, "Or this is going to keep happening, and it's going to be your kid and your kid and your kid next, because it's just a matter of time," unquote. Nashville Metro Police say a 28-year-old woman opened fire at the Covenant School on Monday. The shooter, who has not yet been identified, was shot and killed by police. Victims included 3 9-year-old kids identified by police as Evelyn Dekus, Haley Scruggs, and William Kinney. Cynthia Peak, 61, Catherine Kuntz, 60, and Mike Hill, 61, were also killed, according to Nashville police. Yeah, and, I think that's really what people need to do. When these things happen, and you see the press around, people really just need to go over there and swarm the friggin' press and just get in their face and tell them, look, when is this shit going to stop? We're going to have to get just a little bit more aggressive with getting our message out, and taking advantage of the opportunity when it's presented itself to get our message out to the country. And when a mass shooting like this happens, and there'll be another, and the world press descends on that area, and it will, the people there that are, upset and everything about this need to get on the mics and get in these faces, the reporters. Stop letting the reporters talk about, the numbers of people that died and who did this and that. Okay, that's the same old rigmarole we get every time a mass shooting happens. It helps nobody. It informs nobody of anything. But what we need to do is energize the public to get active as they are, as they try to be, to get active, to, you know, get a hold of your representatives and stuff, and just, you know, bug the shit out of them about it until things are done, till something breaks, you know. And that's really what we have to do, you know. In a other way that, you know, if the reporters don't like being put in these situations where the crowd's going to come after them so they can use the camera, maybe they'll stop reporting this stuff, and maybe that'll stop encouraging more mass shootings. I don't know. So we've come to the point where we've tried everything, haven't we? I mean, we tried to do everything possible to wake this country up, or at least to wake up those people who don't seem to give a shit about seeing things like this. And I don't see that there's really much more we could do that could make more trouble than it's already been made. I mean, how much more damage could we do as a society getting our voices heard than the gun has in killing all these innocent kids and people? You know, isn't a little risk worth it at this point, to get out there, to get in front of these reporters and start taking control of the damn discussion, instead of letting them, you know, thoughts and prayers, you know. Honestly, I think we have to show a little bit more assertiveness in trying to make our voices heard, okay? And like I said, if you see the opportunity with the reporters and stuff out there, you know, grab them right by the tie or whatever, and take the mic out of their hand and just start in, you know, and just say, look, you know, you really want to know what's like down here. This is what it's like, you know. Or get one of the victims, maybe a person who lost their child, and get them on the mic and let them talk to the country at large, and explain to them how this, you know, well-armed country is not safe. You know, how the gun control issue is not even an issue for Republicans, and how they don't care that, you know, some people are walking around armed to the teeth who shouldn't even have as much as a BB gun in their possession. Okay, that's the discussion we need to have. And putting bans on assault rifles and stuff like that is not unreasonable. We as civilians don't have a need to have that at our disposal. Okay, we don't need to have, you know, weapons like that that you could just, you know, cut down a tree with. Okay, if you're hunting, you wouldn't use that. Any good hunter will tell you that, you know, if you're going to hunt deer with a fucking AK-47, that deer ain't going to be of any use to you after you kill it, because it's going to be full of bullets. Okay, and any other thing, you know, like an AR or something like that, will just, you know, destroy whatever value the deer has to you when you shoot at it with that thing, because it'd be like grinding it up for hamburger, you know, before it hit the ground. It's not a good weapon to use for hunting. Its only design is to destroy whatever you're aiming at when you pull the trigger. That's all it is. Okay, it's a quick implement to kill, and it's not to be used as a hunting rifle. So people out there that are hunting with things like that are just show-offs, and they really are amateur hunters, because they don't know, you know, what they're doing. Okay, they're just out there to play with the gun, not so much to hunt for anything. Okay, they just want to shoot that goddamn thing, is what it is. Okay, but around here in this state, as far as I know, most people around here hunt, you know, with shotguns or rifles or something like that. But I never seen anybody go hunting with a fucking, you know, AK-47 or an AR-15 or whatever. Never seen that. Okay, but I'll tell you, it's really ridiculous. And the fact that these things are out there and in people's hands is scary. And the fact that you have a state governor in Florida, you know, we're on death sentence, who wants to pass a concealed carry law that allows people to carry a sidearm on them without a license, I guess. It scares the shit out of me. You know, that, you know, the good thing, he's basically going to turn Florida into a free-for-all. You know, you're going to hear a lot more shootings in Florida now with that being passed. Okay, it was already bad enough with people walking around with these things in their vehicles as it is, and when they're not supposed to have them, or keeping them on them somehow hidden. But now they're being allowed to hide them on their person, and and it's like, well, how in the hell are the police going to deal with that? The cops down there are already all up in arms over this. They don't want the people to be armed to the teeth because it's going to put their lives in jeopardy every time they pull somebody over, even for a minor infraction. Okay, or if there's a domestic disturbance call, it could lead to gunfire. I mean, they're going to have to be armed with the gun all the time, armed to the teeth, and prepared, for a possible street shooting or something. You don't know how that can roll into a big snowball. It's deadly. And right now, from what I understand, Ron DeSantis's popularity is waning in that state because a lot of people down there are thinking he's crossed the line once too many down there being governor. It was I guess for them it was all fun and games last year, going after Disney and all those other damn things about homosexuality and banning books and stuff. But now all of a sudden now people are starting to get tired of it, and they're not interested so much in allowing this governor here to have his own military, as it were. I mean, that's something else he's been after. He's going to create his own army down in the state of Florida. I don't know how that's even legal. Okay, how a person can just create their own army and be answerable only to the governor. That has to cross certain constitutional grounds here. It's got to. I mean, from what I understand, if you create any kind of militia or any kind of an army, it ultimately has to be answerable to the Fed. Okay, which means the presidency. And I don't see how you can just say or supersede that by saying, well, they're only going to be answerable to the governor. So that basically puts the governor in the position of defying the president should the situation present itself. You got his army, the governor's army, against the army of the union. Okay, I mean, doesn't that sound like a civil war in the brewing here? Between Florida and the rest of the. How is this even possible that that's even allowed to happen? I mean, we fought a civil war. There should have been stipulations made after the fact, how to prevent another in the manner in which it was begun. And I think that there is something that addresses that issue. You can't just have that. Any military you have has to be answerable ultimately to the government, to the president. Even the National Guard or something like that, or it doesn't matter what state puts these people together. Okay, they end up. I mean, if they're going to be working for your state of Florida, that's got to include the federal government, right? I mean, it should. But anyway, these things down there, are really getting people nervous, especially the attacks on the public school systems. I mean, he's gone way over the friggin'. I think what's happened is once people realize that he's trying to destroy public education in that state, they're thinking, well, how are we going to educate our kids? And the thing that comes to mind is, well, there's the public school option, the private school option. But everybody knows that you got to pay a lot of money for that. If you want your kids educated, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. Money people don't have, in most cases. Okay, it's better with the tax system where everybody chips in to pay. But if you send your kid in there, that means you and maybe 12 other parents are the ones paying the bill for the school, and that's got to be a big chunk of dough. If you're if you want your kid to be educated. So that's only opening up education for the wealthy, while everybody else, well, how are they going to get their education? The solution I have, at least a theory of solution, is that kids can learn at home on their computer like they did during the pandemic and have the schooling done there. But at the same time, the teachers are going to want to be paid for teaching online. I'm not so sure that people are really going to like that idea either. because there were problems that were linked to that, where people are being taught online, and they think that the kids being stuck at home all day and not interacting with the kids had some social effects on them after. Okay, so I'm sure some people aren't going to be that eager to take that possibility or that solution as a long-term solution. They're going to want their public schools back, okay, because that's really the only logical way you can educate or to make your kids get educated is through that. But at the same time, you got to leave the teachers to let them do their jobs. You can't just tell them you can't teach them this, you can't teach them that. What the fuck do they go to college for if to be a teacher if they can't teach these courses that the kids are being sent to school for? What the hell purpose, is there to being educated? All right, well, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be back.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me!
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Making a domino machine.
It keeps happening.
I didn't materialize from thin air.
Crazy Republicans keep getting elected.
Q is a patriot.
They're in our government.
Liar! Shut up, witch! I'm not a witch, I'm your wife!
They're making our laws.
Maybe we need to have some sort of legislation that requires constitutional life and biblical citizenship training in our schools.
It's a revolving door of crazy.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass!
Certification of those ballots is covered up by the machine.
We have to dismantle the FBI.
To me, someone like Jim Jordan would actually unite all of the different teams within the Republican banner.
God bless us one and all.
Follow Don Winslow. We do not accept donations, but would appreciate your
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Okay, well, today in local news here in WABI-TV, there's an article here. Former Chipotle workers in Augusta reached a $240,000 settlement with the restaurant chain months after the store was closed. Augusta, Maine, former workers of the Chipotle here in Augusta announced they have reached a settlement with the fast food chain after Chipotle closed its doors last year when the workers tried to form a union. Brandy McNeese, co-founder of Chipotle United, says the fight was not easy, but it was worth it. $240,000 in back pay and forward pay, quoted McNeese said, to be divided among the 24 employees on the roster July 19th of last year. Quote, this is the amount that Chipotle would have spent on labor if they did not close down the store, and a small amount of forward pay, unquote, McNeese said. Ethan Watts was an employee and says this was never about money. Quote, the union was a means to an end to make sure that we had the amount of staffing and training and time for everyone there so that they all had a chance to be safe on the job, unquote, Watts said. He says safety was one of the concerns they had before they rallied together to demand a change, and recalls the day he said they had enough. Quote, there were, I think, 2 people manning the entire kitchen, which is supposed to be manned by 7 people, unquote, Watts said. The National Labor Relations Board found that Chipotle broke the federal law when they closed the store hours before a union hearing, although Chipotle says the closing had nothing to do with the union activity. McNeese says the settlement agreement also includes preferential hiring for the former workers. Quote, at any time in the next 90 days, anyone employed on the day we were shut down can ask to be hired at another Chipotle location in the area and will be hired before any other applicant, unquote, McNeese said. Chipotle said in a statement in part, quote, we settled this case not because we did anything wrong, but because the time, energy, and cost to litigate would have far outweighed the settlement agreement. We respect our employees' rights to organize under the National Labor Relations Act and are committed to ensuring a fair and just work environment that provides opportunities to all, unquote. Meanwhile, McNeese says this settlement shows that workers have the power to make a change. Quote, we really wanted to send the message that corporations who feel like they have too much money to follow the law don't. You know, it's funny because it kind of goes to the reality that's, you know, unfolding not just here in Maine, but I think across the country, where you've got people out there, restaurants, stores, they got help wanted signs, you know, in their windows and stuff like that. And I'm sure, you know, lately people have noticed that every place you go is short-handed. Okay? It can't be coincidental that something like this was happening at this Chipotle in Augusta, where, you know, they were understaffed, okay, and safety was becoming a concern to the employees. And the fact that they put out a statement, you know, saying that we respect, you know, their right to, unionize and stuff like that, is fine, and we settle this out of court, because to continue on with the litigation would have cost us more. I think it's just a bunch of smoke. I think they were trying to get away with something which they knew they were in the wrong, and if they kept going, yes, it would have cost them more, and those employees there would have got much more, I think. But as one of them said, it wasn't all about the money. Of course, the money was important because they were out of a job, and they shouldn't have been punished, for having these concerns to bring to a meeting, and before they could even get started, they shut down the store. I mean, that to me sounds, awful, how can I call it, dishonest, on their part to do something like that to their own employees. Before even listening to them, they didn't even want to listen to them, okay? They just shut it down, close it up, and then they say, well, we can offer you the same job at another... Where is there another Chipotle? Maybe there's one that's like 100 miles away. I mean, it's not like a big chain restaurant around here. I mean, I think we have just one here in Bangor, okay? And I don't know where the next closest one would be, but I don't even think Brewer has one, and Brewer is like we're right bedded up against Bangor. It's a twin city. I just don't know how that would have worked out for these people getting rehired somewhere else. And would you really take their word for it that they would actually get hired at another place? If everybody is so undermanned, would they even be willing to hire anybody else? So that right there was a very empty promise, I think, that they were going to make to these people. And in times like these, folks are going to have to protect their jobs, their livelihoods, by any means possible. Now, unions are a way of doing that, okay? But it's good not to let your union run away with your money either, because sometimes they can be a hindrance and not a positive thing to protect you. Because there's been a lot of corruption in unions that have brought a lot of them down because of that, because they're taking money on the side to shut up the union, or what I'm saying? They are, well, at the times that I remember, these unions weren't always, there for when they were needed. But if you take a small union, like this one here, okay, it's good to make sure that it's there to do what it says it's supposed to do, and not there so the person that's on top gets all the money and all the benefit, okay? So I feel like we're kind of reinventing unionism in America, because what passed as unionism became an albatross, on everybody's back, and gave the government the green light, more or less, to just go and attack unions all across America, which is why there's so few unions today. But I think now is the time to come back with fresh unions, back at the spirit that they're meant to be, and not just sitting around collecting dues and taking that money and doing investments with the dues and getting themselves caught in crooked scandals. So, I'm glad that these employees did what they did. I'm just hoping that other people that see this follow the example, but also watch themselves, because if there's dues needed every month or whatever, every year, to stay a member of that union, there has to be honest oversight to make sure that money's being used for the union, and not for the for the people in the union, and not just for the union, okay? That's to prevent, another disaster of a bunch of unions making pyramid schemes and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? So, so when I saw that, because like I said, it speaks to why I think in a lot of places that places are running with short, lists of employees. Obviously, the companies don't want to spend more money than they can spend to make these places work as they should, because the bottom line is about making money, to elevate the value of their stock, okay? And if they're not going to hire people, then You know, that's going to put a lot of burden on the few that are in there working. And that's not fair. You know, you're paying them what? Just $1 more than minimum wage? Okay? And you're asking them to do the job of 6 other people? I mean, come on. I mean, that's slave labor in a new definition. I just don't agree with that. I think that, if you have a place that needs 20 some odd people to run it, then you should have 20 some odd people running that goddamn thing, okay? Not half that, not a third of it, okay? All of it. That's the way I think about it. Okay, so we've some flare-up of issues happening in Israel. And this is an article here on Yahoo News, and it's entitled "How Crisis Engulfed Israel." In an intense show of anger, hundreds of thousands of Israelis took to the streets on Sunday night to protest the judicial overhaul proposed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and supported by his ruling coalition of far-right nationalists and religious extremists. Israeli embassies shuttered across the world as Israelis in the country's foreign service joined other government workers in striking in protest. Airports closed, and so did universities, the nation paralyzed by a sweeping strike. The protests, which had begun in January, appear to have shaken Netanyahu. On Monday evening, the embattled leader announced that he was delaying the divisive power grab, which requires legislative approval until the next legislative session. Quote, "I'm not ready to divide the nation in pieces," unquote, Netanyahu said in a televised address on Monday evening that punctuated one of the most remarkable periods of Israel's tumultuous history. Protests have been taking place since Netanyahu proposed the subject, Israel's judiciary, to oversight by politicians and may well continue even after Monday's announced pause. With the country's politics moving increasingly to the right, the elimination of judicial review would curb the Supreme Court's ability to block illegal settlements on Palestinian land and to limit the influence of religious conservatives who want to pass laws constraining Israel's more secular culture. On Saturday, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant took the unusual step of calling for Netanyahu's proposal to be halted, citing protests from reservists refusing to serve. Gallant said active duty soldiers and officers had voiced similar concerns. Quote, "I hear their voices and I am worried. The events taking place and the issues in Israel society do not keep the Israel Defense Forces," unquote, Gallant said, and quote, "Unprecedented feelings of anger, pain, and disappointment have risen from all over," unquote. Netanyahu responded by firing Gallant on Sunday, leading to that evening's mass protest. Quote, "In an inspiring show of democratic strength and determination, Israelis flooded the streets," unquote, wrote journalist Amir Tibon of the mainstream Haaretz newspaper. Quote, "Hundreds of thousands of people came out without any organization or preparation, responding immediately to a decision they perceived as a dangerous step in a frightening direction," unquote. Let's see. If implemented in full, the reforms outlined in January by Netanyahu and Justice Minister Yariv Levin would allow a majority in the Knesset, Israel's single-chamber parliament, to override the Supreme Court. Politicians would also have much greater say in appointing judges, a process now overseen by the Israeli bar. The proposals have been decried as anti-democratic and counter to Israel's identity as a liberal Western democracy. Quote, "Pure unbridled majoritarianism," unquote, in the words of Nathan Sachs, a Middle East expert at the center-left Brookings Institution in Washington, D.C. After the first wave of protests in January, Netanyahu insisted that his agenda is not only popular, but necessary to curb the expansion of judicial powers that took place in the 1990s. He has also argued that his reforms would bring Israel's government in line with that of Western nations. Quote, democracy is built on the proper balance between the three branches. Of this balance exists in every democracy in the world, unquote, he said. President Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron have condemned Netanyahu's plan. But some Israelis believe that a more selfish concern motivates Netanyahu, who was indicted on 3 corruption charges in 2019 and could face prison if convicted. The trial began in 2020. He has maintained his innocence. Quote, my assessment and opinion is that Netanyahu wants to bring about a situation in which his trial does not come to an end in a proper manner, unquote. Former Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit said last month. So, you know, it seems weird right now. You got the right wing in this country out of control, okay, trying to protect a criminal. And I'm talking about Trump, of course. And now you got the same thing happening in Israel with the right wing protecting another criminal or possible criminal. Okay, he's obviously on trial, okay, but you see what I'm saying. And he does this to divert attention, essentially. Whether or not he really intends to follow through all with it, you know, it doesn't really matter to the people. It's just the idea that he said this about trying to, you know, overthrow a Supreme Court over there by doing something that they don't agree with. I mean, if it was a vote, it never would have been accepted. Okay, so it's again another situation where the minority is dictating what the majority has to swallow. Okay, and I think when you see like situations like this happening in a country, it's a sign of troubled times to come. Okay, because obviously it's sort of a legal coup d'etat when you have the minority actually getting the power over the majority. I mean, isn't that? I mean, it's like doing this without killing anybody. Okay, somehow they find ways into this government system, whatever they're in. Okay, to find a way to get control over the majority of the country so that they can impose their ways, their views on everybody. And I call that a coup d'etat. Okay, because if a democracy is what we say it is, then the majority has to rule, right? And everybody else has to accept that. Even if they don't agree with it, they have to accept that. Okay? Because trying to get your way because you can't prove your point to be justified is just a way of saying you're going to listen to me whether you like it or not, and you're going to do what I tell you whether you like it or not. Okay? And people don't like that. There's no country in the world, even a communist country, nobody likes to have to do that. To take some single person's direction over the majority of what everybody else thinks. Okay? And, you know, in Russia right now, you got people over there who cannot speak out against the government for what they're doing in Ukraine. Okay? They simply can't do that. And when you do, you get arrested and put in prison for 3 to 5 years, I guess, for whatever, you know, you've done, depending on the severity of it. Okay? So nobody dares say anything against the government over there right now. It's like USSR all over again. Okay, so yeah, when Putin comes out and says to people that all of Russia's behind me, well, of course they are, because they don't want to get thrown in prison. Because if they speak out against you, that's what will happen. Okay, that's why a communist country would not appeal to anybody, even in this country. Even if the Republicans think that that's the best way to run a country, they would not like it in the first week. They would hate it to death once they found out what they could or couldn't do anymore. Okay? So, when you have that kind of situation set up, like what's happening in Israel right now, it's the beginning of sort of a direction towards communism. Okay, because once they get a firm grasp on their government, once the minority gets their control over the government, okay, and they have the most powerful influence over that, even over the majority, okay, then you got a problem, because then they can direct where the country goes from then on, whether the people like it or not. they can get one of their own in power as the leader of the country, and that leader can take his own military and force the people to acquiesce. I mean, you're going to do what I tell you, or you're going to suffer the consequences. It's done that quick. Especially if the party that's the minority really has it in to get what they want. I mean, because they'll do what they want in the most violent way just to make sure that it happens. Okay, which is why we saw on January 6th right here in the U.S. what the people on that side, the right wing, will do to get what they want. They went right to violence over the wishes of the majority. They went directly to violence. Okay, to try to get what they wanted, which means what'll happen if we put that party in power in government. Okay, that's what'll happen. If they can't get what they want, they will use violence in order to force people to acquiesce. That's the way they want to do things. Okay? That's what they'll want. That's what they want them to do. So nobody should ever make light about, Donald Trump and the people that support him, and Ron DeSantis and the people that support him, or the governor out in Texas, and the same. Okay, nobody should ever make light of that, because those are situations brewing inside our own government, okay, that could lead to an explosion of, a coup d'etat in our own government, where, the other side of the aisle all of a sudden is powerless to do anything, which is what's getting ready to happen here. They got control of Congress. Biden knows that he can't get anything passed through them, okay, and anything that they pass that gets thrown on his desk is going to get vetoed, okay. So that's where you have Biden, as representing the majority, fighting the minority to try to say, look, we already discussed your idea of how to do things and we don't agree with it, so veto, you're not getting it. And instead of taking that defeat and trying in another way other than violence to get what you want, they just choose to blow up, get their talking heads out on the street to stir up anger and hatred, in order to use that as a way to drum up the public, to get them to do what they did on January 6th. Okay, that's their way of retaliation, and they're thinking like that. That's dangerous. I can't stress how dangerous these times are right now for our country, where our government really is under attack from within. And even though the people that are leading this are a bunch of idiots for the most part, the things that they propose to do, they have been getting some successes there by doing things like what DeSantis is doing in Florida. He's really turned that state inside out as governor. Even though a lot of people in Florida don't like some of the things he's talked about, he's been able to make a lot of successes down there. And it's, Florida is quickly becoming a very, I'm not going to say a fascist, but it's getting there, okay? It's getting there. Very close. Probably closer than most other states. And I think that should worry people in that state, because someday they're going to need something. Okay, someday they're going to need something. And they're going to find out it's not there anymore because your governor got rid of it. And one day your kid is going to face a situation where he's going to be the stupid one out of the crowd, because he came from Florida, and in Florida they don't read books about, Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, okay, books like that are being banned off the shelves in the schools. He's going to be very ignorant of these people because he grew up not knowing these individuals, okay, in any way, shape, or form, because in his state that's taboo, okay. And so when that state starts to see the fallout from these things that DeSantis has done, that's going to be an issue that people are going to reflect on a lot, where they're all going to say it points right back to this period in time in American history where we had this governor who tried to do things his way and didn't care what anybody else said, not even what the president said, and just ruined what 100 years was going well with, okay, but decided that wasn't good enough anymore and that he should get rid of it, and I just think that I'm hoping that people will learn from that and say, look, we're not going to put people like that in power anymore, because they promise you heaven's gold and everything, and when they get in there, it's anything but. Okay, they just rip it apart as quick as they can before you can say anything about it, and before you know it, you're living under the thumb of a dictatorship. Okay, and no one ever had a chance to say anything against it. That's why Democrats are so motivated to try and stop these things before they become bigger issues, okay? Because if you don't step in, the minute you smell, a dictatorship beginning, if you don't step in right off and stop it, it grows quick, okay? It really blows up quick, because there's a lot of people in our country who really don't think. Okay, they're all of the same mental thing. It's like, we got to quickly get rid of this and quickly get, they don't care about voting. They don't want to do that. They don't want to talk about discussions or debating or anything like that. They want it done now, okay? And so anybody that gets into power and does things without discussing with anybody, they like. And I'm talking about just the minority that does. But the majority doesn't. The majority wants it to be done the way the democracy laid out demands us to do it in that procedure, okay? Because that's the honest way. That's the way that all of the country agreed on when we founded this country, okay? So that's the way we're supposed to do stuff, okay? And if you don't like it, well, hey, like I said, move to another country that appeals to you better. You're free to do that. No one's keeping you here. But in this country, we have to make sure that when something is done, it's done by the approval of the majority. That way, there's no fighting, or there shouldn't be any fighting afterwards. All right, because that's the way you keep, a society civilized as best you can. Is that once everyone agrees on something, we do it. Okay, but of course, that always puts the risk of people saying no. Okay. And if you can't take that, then hey, why be a politician? Why even involve yourself in politics if you can't take no for an answer? I just don't see it. Because everybody knows that part of being a politician is about compromise. Or at least people should know that. That way, nobody gets everything they want, but each side gets something they want. That's better than nothing. So anyway, with these things going on, and of course, the shootings and everything, it really paints a really bad picture of Earth. It frames Earth in a very dark way right now, and I think anyone would agree with me in saying that these are historical times, but they're very difficult times. And difficult times are usually times people write history about. So when people are out there talking about getting rid of history and stuff like that, there's a reason that talk begins during times like these, is because they want to rewrite it as it goes, because they don't want people to think about what was being done at this time as bad, as a step toward the wrong direction that created all the mess that came after. All right, so everybody likes to jump in and deny people the right to remember history the way it happened during periods like this. So anyway, I hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and please keep your ears open for any news locally of COVID-19. Treat each other well, and subscribe and comment on my videos here, and be glad to hear from you. I hope everyone treats each other well, and try to enjoy the good weather as it comes. We certainly can use a little bit of brightness in our life instead of living in the darkness. And I will talk to you again later. So